Hey everybody, just want to cover a little bit on tantalum caps. I've been a technician for years and I know that they're a high failure rate item. I've replaced quite a few and I really didn't really know or even care why they failed. But so I just want to cover a little bit about that now because they've kind of got a bad name in the audio industry. Almost nobody uses them anymore in manufacturers because they don't want to deal with the failure rate. But they do have some really good characteristics as far as a capacitor. And if you find them one in something, I would always try to replace it with another tantalum because that's just what the engineer intended for the circuit. And there's not really anything out there that can really match you know, what the original engineer intended. So now the reason I'm covering these is this is one component. I replaced a ton of caps in one component, and I also had one fail in one of my own components. I have a CD DSP. It's Krell. I'd let it set up over a year and powered it up, and hear a loud explosion. I take it apart, and it's a tantalum cap, and it had exploded. So after doing a little research, these tend to fail due to what I did, just basically letting them set up a long time. That and humidity. It seems like crystalline something forms across it on the inside, and it can cause it to short out when you first cut it on. The inrush current, can cause that. Now these are actually reliable if they're powered on a lot. They're actually supposed to have 30 or 40 years reliability. And so, the best thing to do for these is, if you have a component, is just to use it all the time. And so, lack of use is what tends to go bad on these. So, if you have a component that you're kind of collecting, like me, like in the CDSP, that you let set a while, there is a safer way to power these up. And that's using a Variac. Now this is old and crusty, I know. I bought it from a TV tech friend of mine years ago, but and what you do on these is you want to avoid the inrush current that you would normally power up something with. So you start it out really low. You want to start it maybe about a third to a quarter of the rated voltage. And you want to monitor the device that you're powered up. You want to look at, if you got a thermal imaging camera, it would be great for this. You want to look at the caps and make sure that they're not overheating. Now, I don't even have a thermal imaging camera. I know a lot of techs do, and it's a great device. I do plan to get one day, but I'm just used to the old troubleshooting methods, so that's just, that's just kind of what I'm used to. But another thing you can do is you can feel the tops of the caps and make sure not any of them are getting hot, and you want to be very careful, not to touch anything that's that could electrocute you. So I'm not responsible if any of you guys do that, but just monitor them, make sure none of them's getting too hot, and then after maybe about 30 minutes, crank it up to about half voltage, which would be a 60 volts if you're on the 120 volt, in your area, and then gradually go up to full rated voltage after about an hour. So that's how I would do it, and you still may have one to fail, if it's been subjected to humidity or if it's just developed a lot of, internal crystalline whatever over the period that it's been stored. So, so that's the best way to do it, if you want to, try to power it up. And they're actually self-healing. If you're able to power it up and there's not been a tremendous amount of internal damage, you can still have one fail later if it has a lot of internal damage. But if you don't want to replace a lot of caps, that would be the best way to bring it up and try to let it self-heal it. Use it a good while, and before you put it up again. If you're just in the mode of collecting something or whatever. But if you are collecting something, it's recommended to power it on about once every 3 or 4 months. And like I say, mine was a year, maybe even less than a year. I think a lot of the guys online were saying power it up about once a year, but I definitely do it more than once a year because, like I say, mine, of course, I live in Georgia in the U.S., which is fairly humid, so, that might have contributed a good bit to it. So if you are storing it, a good way to store it would be with those silicone packs. Seal it up pretty tight, put silicone packs in there with it to keep it dry, especially if you're in an environment like me. If you're in somewhere like Arizona, you may not have to even deal with that part of it, but I don't know the exact. Sometimes we get 70 or 80% humidity outside here. It's not that inside, but still, it's more than a place like Arizona would be. But so bringing it up that way would be the safest. But the actual safest thing to do, especially if you've had one fail, and when they're already, would be just to replace them all. And that's what I did in this one component, because if you got one that's already failed, there may be others that are marginal. They might self-heal. I mean, if you didn't want to, if you don't have a lot of tech expertise and didn't want to pay a lot of money to somebody to do it, I'd definitely go the route of using the Variac. Now, Variacs, last I checked, I think you could get a brand new one for probably around $100 or something on eBay, or you could get a used one, whichever. Could even find one locally. But so replacing them, like I say, would be the best way. And the way I did this batch, these are the bad ones, but the ones I replaced, I called up the distributor, and I wanted to make sure that I got the freshest batch of each value, and and some people even go up extra voltage. Like these are 35 volts, and some people go up to 50 or something. I didn't do that. I stayed the same voltage, but just make sure you got a fresh batch. And if you do, when you do get it fixed, replace, make sure you, even if it's a collector item, you don't want to wear out the rest of it, just maybe power it on every 3 or 4 months, use it for maybe about a day or something. And, that'd be the best way to, keep it maintained. Because, like I say, these are self-healing, to a degree. If it's, if you've already got to the point where you're, hearing popping noises or something in it, it's time to replace it. And that's another symptom of some things have pop. This has been known to cause popping noises in some items. Especially if they're like in this signal path of something. But they're not generally used much in the signal path. I think I seen one in a Marantz that was in a signal path years ago. But and it seemed like it was causing some problem like that. But now a lot of people will just replace these with electrolytics. Now, for the sake of the sound quality, I wouldn't do that. I've done it before, and it seemed like it degraded the sound. These have superior properties, even though nobody uses them anymore. They have, in general, superior properties to aluminum electrolytics, especially where they're used at. The engineers designed these, to be put in a way that, in the circuit in such a way, where these, just in comparison to electrolytic, when they first came out, these had a superior ESR to electrolytic, so they have generally low ESR. But modern ESRs have caught up to that, and these in ESR, and in some cases even surpassed it. Like a solid polymer cap is way lower ESR than these, but I definitely wouldn't replace one of these with a solid polymer. Those would be the worst replacement for one of these. The reason is solid polymers have an insanely high leakage current compared to these. They're much higher than just a traditional electrolytic capacitor. On these, another thing these have that electrolytics don't in general is they have a much lower leakage current than electrolytics. So they also have much better temperature stability. So in something like a Class A circuit, these would be great, as far as temperature stability. They have like 5 times better temperature stability than, an equivalent electrolytic capacitor. But if you want to replace them and with an electrolytic, there is one you can use. There's only one I would even consider using. And even then, it's not going to be quite as good. That is an Ichicon KL series. An Ichicon KL It has about the same ESR and almost the same leakage current as one of these. For reference, a Nichicon KL has 1/10 the leakage current of a regular electrolytic capacitor. And if you can they're hard to find now. I don't think they're actually made, but you can still probably find those in some stock in some places. You know, some distributors that may still have them. But the 10% tolerance, the KLK version, would be the best. That would have the best temperature stability. But it's still not going to come close to this as far as, this still beats, you know, even the KL series a good bit as far as temperature stability. But the KL series would be the closest, and it would definitely long term be more reliable than these. But you just wouldn't get the quite the performance. You know, you may not get quite the sound quality of one of these. But if you just want to put something in and forget it, the KL series should work. But like I say, as long as you kind of rotate it, you know, just make sure it's powered on every few months, they should be good. And like I say, store them in a dry environment, especially if you live somewhere like me, like Georgia. But well, anyway, I just want to cover this with you guys.